Excavation Profits Podcast by Excavation Marketing Pros. Interviews with successful excavation and septic business owners, revealing how they market and grow their business in today's economy. Hear directly from the most successful leaders in your business and discover what they're doing to keep their phone ringing, equipment running, and businesses booming. Now your host, Scott Andreessen.
All righty. Well, hello, everyone. This is Scott Andreessen with the Excavation Profits Podcast, and I am back with part 2 featuring Weston Zimmerman of ClickUp, how to quote more profitable projects without a spreadsheet in under 10 minutes. Very bold promise from the title, but Weston, what do you say? Are you up to the task?
Let's do it. It's possible. What if we do it in under 30 seconds? Is that even?
As long as I don't get the hate mail, I'm all for it.
Yeah. It is possible. It does vary some depending on the types of work you're doing, but there are types of work that it's literally click, drag, done, send, and all the math is automated. All the material lists, equipment, everything's automated. That is totally possible, although there can be nuances and caveats that might take it from a 30-second to a 10-minute process.
Cool. Let me give the brief rundown. If in case you guys tuning in missed the episode a couple weeks back, Weston Zimmerman is CEO of Synced Up, which is I'll go ahead and let you quickly describe what your app does for contractors, Sure. If you would, please.
Yeah, so it's basically an app. Well, okay, so for context, I worked in the contracting, like the trades for all my life, essentially. And we had this problem where we were trying to make sure that we're not only charging the right price on our markups and overhead recovery and labor hours, but we were also trying to just get faster and turn it to where like it's not only the owner that can bid a job correctly, accurately, repeatably, the same way every time. So we built an app to solve both of those problems. One, always be charging the correct markups and overhead recovery and profit margins and all our stuff. So we're always dialed into the penny, and we're not getting caught in the trap of thinking that we should be charging X per hour when it really should be Y per hour. So we fixed that problem. So it's a budgeting and labor hour overhead recovery tool. And then it's also estimating, scheduling, job costing, invoicing, sending a proposal off to your client, getting it signed and approved. So it's the whole, it's a software that really takes it from cradle to grave, from the time that you are getting a lead, estimating that job, setting it off for approval, scheduling it, tracking it as you're doing it, and then invoicing it at the end of that. And there's things in that process that we really have streamlined for getting estimating out of the owner's head and into a repeatable process. So not only are you estimating quantities of hours and materials correctly, you're also correctly charging your overhead recovery and rates, so that when you buy a new truck or you hire an office admin, what does that do to your rates? Well, you don't have to wonder anymore. That's just automated inside of this app. And, your insurance bill goes up, you plug it into the software that same day, the very next quote you send out that afternoon is already dialed to correctly accommodate that shift in your business's structure.
That's huge. And so I know in my niche, excavation and septic, one of the pain points is going out, doing the site visit, and then doing their due diligence, coming back, and then spending hours putting together a quote and then a proposal. And so here today, the promise is we're going to nip this in the bud and just under 10 minutes put together a lightning fast quote that is going to be true and profitable, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So if you're ready, I can share my screen and I'll take it from there.
I'm excited. Let's do it. You are host.
Let me pull this up. Make sure that you can see. Do you see a synced up dashboard on your screen?
Sure do.
Okay.
Looks good.
Before I'm going to get into the synced up software, I'm just going to show you visually the concept that I was describing. So on my screen right now is a triangle that I call the profit triangle. At the top of the triangle is profit. That's what we're gunning for. But it's standing on 2 legs. And if any one of those legs breaks, you lose profit. They're independent of each other. So the number one profit killer is math. That's what I was alluding to with the budgeting. What happens when my assurance goes up? What should my labor hour rate go to? That's the math problem. And the second one is resources. Like, hey, I thought it should take 88 man hours to do this job, but it actually took me 120. My resources were wrong. And even though I had perfect on paper math, I still didn't make money. So both of those things, the math and the resources in a bid, in an estimate, have to be dialed, or you will not make the profit that you're hoping to make repeatably and predictably. So that's what I call the profit triangle. And ultimately, in a nutshell, this is what Synced Up is. It fixes both of these systemically, quickly, and efficiently. And these are the two biggest profit killers that contractors fight. You can, I've been doing this for hundreds or thousands of contractors across North America in the last number of years of my life. And at the end of the day, there's many, many ways to lose money on a job, but they all kind of boil up into either this math category or the resources category.
Okay.
And then one more visual thing I'm going to show you is what I call the Know Your Numbers flywheel. So Know Your Numbers is kind of our tagline at Synced Up. It's what we're kind of all about. Like, hey, know your numbers. Don't worry about what everybody else is charging. The sooner you can get to the point where you say, it is what it is, that's my price, and I can't argue with reality, the sooner you can get to that point, the healthier your business will be. But essentially, this flywheel visually dictates or shows what knowing your numbers looks like. So first, it's budgeting, where we enter every dollar my business spends to keep the lights on so that I can get exactly what my man-hour rate needs to be, which includes my overhead recovery markup. So that's the math problem. I enter every dollar my business spends so that I can get my dialed in math and know exactly what I need to charge and what my overhead recovery markups need to be. Second, it's the estimating. So now that I got the numbers, now I go into the estimating, and what I enter is my man hours, materials, and expenses to do the job, estimated. And what I get is a job price for profit mathematically. We still don't know yet if I have the correct amount of man hours, materials, and expenses and resources in the estimate. The only way we find that out is going to the next phase of this Know Your Numbers flywheel that I've called tracking. And here we enter on a daily process our actual timesheets, actual material usage, actual expenses, receipts, and invoices so that we get real-time progress updates and job costing data out of the job. And at the end, when the job is done, we get job costing. This is the final piece of this Know Your Number flywheel, where we enter is just 2 minutes of your eyeballs' time. Sit down and look at it to read the estimated versus actual data that's sitting in your dashboard. And what you get back out is the power and knowledge to build a more accurate estimate the next time. Never get caught in the trap of repeating the same mistake again and again and again. Make the mistake one time, learn from it, and adjust on your next estimate, either in the math area or in the estimating area. So this is the Know Your Numbers flywheel. Budget, estimate, track, job cost. Go around again, and you get a more and more accurate estimate each time you go around this wheel. So again, conceptually, visually, this is what Synced Up does. And jumping over to the software itself, in that budgeting phase where I'm fixing the math problem, and I'm showing you this to build up to what the 10-minute estimate creation process looks like. But going into the budget worksheets of Synced Up, essentially what I'm showing on my screen right now is the budgeting tool, where this is where I enter every dollar my business spends to keep the lights on. If my business spends it, it's got to be in here. If it's not in here, what was supposed to be my profit is going to go pay for that business expense. And that's what I don't want to have happen. So I will go through on this budgeting tool that's on my screen right now, and I will enter every dollar I spend on labor, which means enter all my employees and what I pay them and how many hours they work a year and all of that. I go in and I enter every dollar I spend on vendors for my materials. I go in and I enter every piece of equipment that I have on my fleet, and whether what I will pay for, what it would cost me to replace that piece of equipment, how many years I intend to use it, and what I estimate that I will be able to get for it when I do sell it and replace it. And what the budgeting tool calculates then is, okay, cool. In this example that's on my screen of a truck, I'd pay $75,000 to replace it. I anticipate using it for 5 years and selling it for $35,000 before I replace it again, and I cycle it out for another one. And the software looks at that and says, okay, cool. Replacement cost minus sell price. That's your net depreciation during the time that you used it. Divide that by the number of years you anticipate having it. There's your annual cost to own that piece of equipment in depreciation, not repairs and maintenance, depreciation. And that's an invisible expense on your P&L. So this is a backbiter. Many contractors never stop and realize just how much money depreciation is costing them in their business. So this closes off that leak.
These, not to cut you off, but these items here are, these headers, for instance, are pre-populated so people can just enter in their numbers, or they need to be thinking this up themselves?
So basically, we have a dedicated financial coach if you decide you want to use Synced Up that helps you walk you through this and help you build your first budget if this is unfamiliar to you.
Oh.
But essentially, it's a matter of just going through and entering everybody that works for me, what I pay them, how many hours they work a year, what I pay all my vendors for all my materials, what all equipment that I own. I just plug it all in, every piece of equipment, truck, trailer, everything I have, all the subs I work with, and what I anticipate spending with them on an annual basis. And then all of my overhead expenses, my website, my marketing, my bank fees, my credit card processing fees, my insurances, my taxes and licenses, my equipment maintenance, my fuel and rentals, my owner's salary, sales staff, marketing staff, office admin staff, payroll taxes, professional expenses, like if you have a consultant, an accountant, a coach, subscriptions like QuickBooks and even Synced Up if you're using Synced Up, Company Cam if you're using Company Cam, whatever it is you're using, put everything in here. The idea is if your business spends it, put it in here, because every dollar that your business spends that is not in here is lost, meaning what was supposed to be your profit goes to cover that cost that your budget never recovered.
Okay, makes sense.
And so when you finally land on the last tab of this budgeting tool, which we call the overview, you just plug in what you want to make on a net profit margin, and the software does its magic and calculates, okay, cool. You would need to charge X dollars. In my screen, it's showing $89.49 per man hour for you to cover all of your costs and recover all of your overhead and still make your desired net profit margin, which I have set at 20% right now on my screen. If I say, well, what if it looks like I want to do 25%? Now it's $95.45. How low, like what if I wanted to go all the way down to 10 and call it razor thin? Well, I could get it down as low as $79. What if I did 0%? $71.59 is my break even. I'm not making a penny until I charge more than $71.59. It's only after I add my profit margin that I get any profit at all.
Very cool.
So this is how this is fixing the math problem. You see what I mean? And if suddenly I'm wondering, I wish I could hire an office admin, but I never thought I could afford it, blah, 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 blah. Well, hey, this is the cool thing about budgeting. Let's go play. Let's go put it in. Let's add an office admin here. And let's say that it's going to cost 50 grand a year to hire this person. What would it cost? What would that do to my man hour rate? It went up by like, what, $4? I can do that. You know, so you get to play with this and scenario things out. And what would happen if I bought this or bought that equipment or hired that person? And it lets you see exactly what that does to your pricing. And then it's a lot more digestible. Like, can I do that? Versus feeling like I can't afford, I can't. Well, let's see.
You're projecting your growth based on factual information.
Yep.
You're not guessing. Love it. Right.
And what's really, really key is the software shows you what your break-even amount is. So on my screen right now is a hypothetical budget of 1.2 some million in a company. And it shows me in that 1.25 million of sales that's required to cover the cost and overhead and profit. My break-even is 930,000. So after that point, I've recovered all my direct costs and my overhead, but still no profit. And it's also showing me my revenue needed per day to meet that sales goal, how many production days I need to break even, and my estimated break-even date, which is currently showing as August 30th. So it calculates all this stuff based off of all of your inputs. Now that, and basically, once you land on this screen, you have effectively solved that first profit killer, the math problem. but I could still lose money by bidding a job for 100 hours and it took me 150, even though my math is perfect on paper when it comes to dollars and cents and markups and all of that. And that's where we fix it in the estimating.
Very nice.
So, ready to dive into an estimate?
I would love to. Absolutely.
So I'm going to just go into a brand new estimate. I'm just going to pick a random customer here off my customer list, even though you would enter your real customer.
Hmm.
And let's pretend that we are doing a septic tank install. I'll name the job and I'm going to create a work area. Okay, this is the 30-second process. Create a work area. You timing me?
Starting now. Got it.
And I'm on a work area here. Everything's at zeros. There's nothing in it. I open up my catalog browser and I could drag and drop everything I need, the skid loader, the labor, the pipe, the septic tank. I could drag and drop everything I need from my catalog browser, or I can just go to templates, search for one that I built here before we got on this call, drag and drop that in, and bingo. I got everything I need. There's my price. I'm done. I'm ready to hit send.
Oh, we did it? That's it?
We did it. We're done.
That was like 10 seconds.
I mean, I can hit the save button and hit the send button yet if you wanted me to really stretch it out.
That's really awesome. Okay, so it's got estimated price $14,684, man hours 80, materials 5,067, 0.15, gross profit 46%, net profit 20. Yeah.
And so what I did is I just drug and I built this template, which took me like 5 minutes. Like I added my labor, I added my excavator, I added the tank, I added the plumbing, I added the fabric and the chambers and the soil and the seed afterward. I built all that template from scratch. That took me 5 or 8 minutes. And then to build the estimate, I literally just selected that template from my catalog and dragged and dropped it over and I was done. And now, of course, I could be like, well, hey, just the nature of this job, it's going to disturb more area than normal. And so this topsoil and the grass seed after it's done, it's going to be more than normal. So I'm going to put in 2,500 square feet of repair instead of my normal 1,000. And I'm entering a production rate. And I'm just plugging in my measurement of 2,500 square feet. And it's calculating how many pounds of grass seed and how many yards of soil I need to pull that off. Or if I just say, well, actually, it's not 2,500, it's 1,000. Okay, fine. It's doing the math for me. So I just enter in the measurements. Does everything else for me. And so on the left half of my screen, to the left of my cursor right now is item names and quantities. That is the resources portion of an estimate. On the right side of my cursor is all the numbers, the cost, the overhead recovery, the break even, the profit margin, the price. That is the math portion of building an accurate estimate. So when you think of it this way, on this triangle, the profit triangle, the resources is literally the quantity of the products in the bid, in the estimate. The math is all the markups and the overhead recovery happening on the right. And if both of those are accurate, the job will be priced accurately. But if I made a mistake, even though I had perfect on paper math here with my man hour rate, if I say it's going to take me 80 hours, but it's actually taking me 120, I'm still going to lose money.
And so is this taking into consideration the fixed overhead costs for the business as well?
That's right. So if you look at this, let's pick on this install labor item. This is my labor. And I have it set at 80 hours, and it's showing that my cost on a man hour in my business, according to that hypothetical budget that I just showed you, is $25.88. But by the time I pay for my insurance, my office admin, my marketing, all of my costs to keep the lights on, my break even is $61.38. Then I add my profit percentage, and my price to my customer is the $76.73.
And each of those individual ones for profit, could those be tweaked if you wanted?
That's right. So I can click on this and say, I want a 30% margin on this. Yep.
Okay.
Or if I really want to, the estimate is showing me $15,801.10. I'm just like, I just don't feel good about this client. I just anticipate there's going to be some callbacks and stuff. I'm just going to fluff this up. I'm just going to round this up to 17,500. I can just override that and bingo. It lets me pump it up, and it shows me now I'm looking at a 31% profit margin instead of a 20% profit margin.
And for those, can you explain the difference between gross profit and net profit?
Yep. So on my screen right now is a number that's gross profit that's set at is showing 54%. Right beside it is another number showing net profit at 31%. The difference is gross profit is the money that's left in a job after you paid for your direct costs like labor and materials, subcontractors, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Net profit is what's left after you've also paid your business's operating expenses to stay open, like your light bill, your trucks and your insurance, your marketing expenses. So gross profit is what's left. What's left in gross profit, I still have to go pay my insurance. I still have to go pay my marketing expenses. I still have to go pay every other business expense that's not been directly linked to this job. The overhead expenses, like that overhead expenses tab on that budget screen that we were on about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. And the contractors that I talk to, a lot of them will get the gross profit fairly accurate, but the net profit's way off.
Right.
At the end of the year, there's no money left over. And that's because they're not accounting for all the different things in overhead.
That's right. So what happens? I mean, okay, let's say you sat down in the winter, you did a bunch of math, and you figured out that you need to charge X per day or X per hour. Okay, cool. Since you last did that exercise, let's do a little thought experiment. What all has gone up? Your insurance went up. You decided to spend more money on marketing. You want to pay yourself a little bit more. You started hiring a VA, a virtual assistant, for a couple hours a week. You're spending money that was not accounted for the last time that you last did your numbers and to come up with your rates. So what that means is the money that was supposed to be your net profit is going to pay for those expenses. What that means is you're charging, the last time you did an out-of-date budget or out-of-date math on what you need to be charging per hour or per day is a wrong budget. Because I could do this budget, but then go off and keep on growing my business, keep on adding trucks, keep on adding to my infrastructure, and never update my pricing. And slowly my net profit is going to go from 20% to 18% to 12% to 6%. And I'm sitting there thinking, I did more revenue than I've ever done in my history, but I have less money in the bank account to show for it. How is that possible? And that's how your rates don't keep up with the rate of your spending money to grow the business.
Yeah. And I think of conversations I've had with some contractors that are doing 7 figures, and they're not even using a spreadsheet. They're still doing everything on notepad and paper. And I'm just wondering how can they possibly know what they're spending and what they're making by doing that?
It's wild guessing is what it is. I mean, it's like, okay, so
it's too much, right? For any human to do with a pen and a piece of paper.
You can, everything that's showing on my screen, all the math that's happening on my screen, you can totally do manually. You can do it on the back of a napkin if you're determined enough. But the time it would take you hours to do what I just did in seconds.
Yeah.
And also it eliminates the human error. Like, oh, yes, templates, nice. I forgot about that thing that I almost always forget on every bid. Or, oh, yes, let me go look at how many hours it took on my last 3 jobs. Ooh, I should bump that up on this bid. The idea is only make mistakes once. Don't let it, And so what's really cool is if I were to go back and say, hey, my insurance went up, and I go update my budget and go take it from $15,000 a year to $20,000 a year for insurance, the very next quote I send out this afternoon is dialed to the penny to accommodate for that last change in what my business spends money on overhead.
What's nice about what I'm seeing for those listening later on the podcast is this is very clean to look at. Spreadsheets do the trick. If they're dialed in right, we all know spreadsheets do the trick, but they're very tough to look at and navigating. But this is very easy to see. It's very easy to navigate. And it's not as intimidating as a spreadsheet. So pretty
And
cool.
it's also, I would say it's also repeatable. You know, like the thing with a spreadsheet is usually the guy that built it knows how to run it and it knows it like the back of their hand.
Right.
And then you give it off to somebody else and they break it, you know, or they don't use it correctly, but it's not very apparent that somewhere something is wrong. Software just minimizes the potential for human error.
Yeah.
But what we can do after we have this quote built, so I could also be like, hey, do you want us to do the lawn reseeding after we're done with the job, or do you want to do that yourself to save a nickel? Okay, fine. Let's go ahead and try it, and we'll throw that in as a separate line item, a separate option for the customer. And I will just throw in my labor. I'll just see, and now I'm not using a template. Now I'm building it from scratch.
My 10-minute timer just went off, by the way.
There we go.
You did it in 10 seconds. We totally should have retitled this. The title was way off. 10 minutes. It should have said 10 seconds.
So here we go. I just threw in a separate line item for like the grass reseeding. I'm going to let the client pick if they want me to do that or if they want to do it themselves. Now I can send this off to the customer as a proposal. I can show all the work areas. I have my contract verbiage all in there, which, by the way, this is kind of funny. Fred's Landscaping is not liable for anything. We have spent thousands of dollars with the renowned law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Making get away with anything. Any questions? I can set my payment schedule, down payment to book the job, whatever I want to do. I can automatically send them an invoice the moment they approve it. I save that. So all of this is getting configured on the front end. Now I can send this off to the customer, select my recipient. I can turn on automated follow-ups so that if they forget to kind of approve it or reject it, it'll keep on reminding them until they do. And send that off. And the customer gets an email that looks something like this right here. Go, and the customer gets this link to review the proposal, and the customer sees an estimate that looks like this. I can turn different line items on or off. So I can, as a customer, I can choose. I just want you to do the septic, or I want you to do the lawn reseeding and the septic. And I can like kind of select with optional line items what I want, and the total at the bottom automatically updates.
Oh, that's slick. Because if they have like a bundle package of multiple site services and stuff like that, they can choose to turn it. It's like you're creating upsells.
That's right. Give them options A, B, and C. Give them what they asked for plus some optional upsells. Make them say no. And it's really, really nice because the customer can then just kind of like, the customer flips to a buying mode because they're selecting what they want instead of finding a single thing that's wrong with your proposal and rejecting it and saying do something different.
Cool. And then I see you're doing electronic signature, and you would just post all your terms and conditions right in there.
Yep. That's right. So as soon as I hit this blue button to confirm this approval, I will immediately get an invoice from my QuickBooks Online. So it integrates with QuickBooks Online. Ping, it gets me the invoice. I make the payment, done. So from the time I, as the contractor, send that proposal off, they can view it, approve it, and pay for it. It's all automated. I don't have to do anything manually.
Wow, that's slick. So they autograph the proposal. Then how do they pay the invoice? Is that getting shot over directly from QuickBooks, or how does that work?
Here it is. There's the email with the invoice. I click on pay invoice as the customer, and I'm in the customer's mind frame.
Okay. So somehow your synced up is integrated with QuickBooks.
That's right.
And then it's sending them the invoice of what's due.
That's right.
And so this transaction right here that we're looking at would be reconciled in QuickBooks for their taxes.
Yep. automatically. It's already in the right cost code on your chart of accounts. It's already all the taxes, everything it's all pre-populated by the synced up integration with QuickBooks. So the moment they pay this, QuickBooks automatically assigns the payment to the invoice. It marks as paid. You can see the invoice is marked as paid inside of the synced up app, and off you go.
So if someone already has all their costs line itemed out, how long would it take them to transfer that information over here?
Into synced up.
Yes.
So when you say cost, do you mean like a cost for what it would be to bid a job, or do you mean like all the business expenses, like the budget?
Yeah, whole thing top to bottom, their labor, their materials, everything.
So typically, when someone signs up with Synced Up, we have them meet with our dedicated financial coach that's on staff just to help our Synced Up customers build accurate budgets and keep them up to date. So you would meet with them. And typically, it's an hour-long phone call where we go over your numbers in your QuickBooks and your profit and loss statement, and we look where your business is spending money, build a budget inside of Synced Up based on your actual transactional like track record, your history, and we establish what your rates are off of that, off of your actual history. Now we have that, and we just build the estimates and get them approved. And as the money comes in, that money flows over to QuickBooks in the correct category, and so it's a full circle.
Oh, nice. So if I'm understanding you right, it's not just here's the software, start plugging in your numbers. You actually have someone that
That's right.
helps guide that process.
Yeah, we have a white glove onboarding process. We charge for it. It's $1,000 one-time fee to start a new account. But out of that, you get a dedicated financial coach, a dedicated account rep. The financial coach is all about helping you make sure that your budget is built correctly, because at the end of the day, computers are dumb. They do exactly what you tell them to do, right? It's a mathematical equation. So we want to make sure that your budget is built, and we have a set of experienced human eyes looking down over that, making sure that we believe that the overhead is looking good and that the overhead recovery is looking right. And if we see anything that looks odd, we'll be asking you, hey, where did this number come from? Let's go digging. Let's go look. Let's make sure that your number for fuel is actually correct. That looks high or whatever. Like you have an actual financial coach just looking over your shoulder, making sure this is built right. And then the account manager that you get is all about making sure that you get your templates built the way you want, so that it matches the way your brain thinks, and that your team is up to speed on how to track their time in the mobile app, so that the job costing is all dialed. Yeah.
Okay. So what, from like 1 to 5, what's the level of computer skill that a contractor would need to use this? 5 being like, we'll say most advanced, maybe they're proficient in spreadsheets or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
1 is, how do I turn this thing on?
2. I'll tell you 2, because and I would and I'm debating between, should I say 1 or should I say 2, because we literally have people that probably would not even have a cell phone if their boss didn't make them be running this thing day in, day out, and they do a fantastic job of it. So it really comes down more to your commitment of, do I want to have a business that runs off of repeatable systems, or do I want to be shooting from the hip, see that I'm not making as much money as I'd like to be making, so I just charge 10% more every year, and I hope my strategy is hope. And most of I was just on a podcast trip last week, visiting a bunch of our customers, and it was funny because what I hear almost every time I go visit someone and we get to know each other and we're talking to them, these are synced up customers, by the way, is almost every one of them will say, you know what, I'm just not a tech guy. I just want to, I love doing the work. I just want to do a fantastic job, have happy customers, and make good money doing it. And those are our synced up customers. Those are the ones that are successfully using it. Those are the ones that are going from, I think I need to shut my doors, to, wow, I'm making more money than I ever made before in my life. Finally. And I don't feel like I'm a slave to my business. I feel like the business serves me.
Yeah. And it's just by knowing your numbers. And I can't tell you how many contractors I talk to, that their idea of what to charge is just what their competitors charge.
Yeah, I know.
And their competitors don't know any better. So it seems like the blind leading the blind.
It is. It truly is. I'm not kidding. I agree. It's the blind leading the blind, and it's a race that it's a race that nobody can win. Because at the bottom, if you're looking at price, at the bottom, the people that are charging the least literally have no idea what it's costing them to be in business, and they're guessing. And so if you want to beat those people that are at the bottom of the price game, it's a game you can't win. And so stop trying to, my advice to contractors is stop trying to win based on being the cheapest. Start trying to win by delivering the best value, the 5-star experience, the best communication, the nicest presentation of a proposal, being the quickest to get back to you with a proposal. Don't make them wait for 3 weeks. Do it before you leave the driveway. Be professional. That kind of stuff will win you more business than being the cheapest ever will.
What insight could you give on what their profit margin should be based on annual revenue, based on gross revenue?
Well, the way, okay, so unfortunately, there's been some studies done on this, and unfortunately, the average net profit for a business, a contracting business, is in the single digits, 2 to 5%. When we build a budget for a synced up customer, our bottom, like we won't let you build a budget for less than 10%. Less than 10% is just not, it's just not worth it. It's just too razor thin. We like to see 15 to 20%. And those customers that we have that, they're just really good at what they do and they have a great reputation. They're 25, 30 plus net profit.
Yeah, net profit. Gross profit may be looking like 50, 60%, but when it's all said and done, net profit is what you're talking about.
And just for context, I have seen businesses that run 50% gross profit and make 5% net. I have seen businesses that run at 30% gross profit and make 15% net. Which one would you rather have?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So it comes down to not only isn't it knowing your numbers, but is also being efficient, like logistically managing a job site. Because I know of customers that have synced up customers, that have $150 man-hour rate, but they can beat their competitor that has a $90 man-hour rate. Why? Because they are extremely good and extremely well set up with equipment and logistics and managing a job site, and they can do the same job in less time than their competitor. To the degree that even though they're charging more per hour, they can do the job for the same or similar or even sometimes less than their competitor, which is charging less per hour. And they're doing that not by spending less money on marketing, blah, 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 blah. They're doing that by being more efficient logistically in managing a job site.
Yeah.
It's a huge overlooked thing, and we're getting off the software tangent a little bit because the software will fix the numbers, make sure the math is right, help you build a job, an estimate in a minute or two, get that quote out the door or even to your client before you even leave the driveway. It will do all of that, but there is just as much profit to be squeezed from a focus on operational efficiency as there is in making sure that everything I talked about and synced up is right.
You mentioned something about a financial coach with synced up. Do they help contractors specifically to know what their profit margin should be and shed light on all that?
Yeah. So that conversation is all taking place there on the budgeting screen, which I'll go back to here on my screen if you're on the live stream. So what's happening with your financial coach is they're looking over these numbers, making sure that these numbers are going in correctly. They're asking you questions, like, do you do, so for instance, a big one that many contractors never even think about until their synced up financial coach asks them is okay, cool. You hired Joe. You pay him $35 an hour. He works almost 2,000 hours a year. But how many of those hours a year are unbillable? Rain days, washing trucks, cleaning up the shop, taking him to a show, training, teaching, office days, whatever it is. And this unbillable hours thing is a big overlooked leak that a lot of contractors never stop to consider, because when you pay Joe to wash your truck because it's raining outside and you can't be working, you are still paying him, except that nobody is paying you. That's a cost that is hidden. All you see on your P&L is payroll expenses. What percentage of that is productive and billable versus unbillable? You don't know. So we budget for that. So we're recuperating those costs in your budget. But yeah, that's what the financial coach is doing, is they're just going down through looking for things that you may have missed, things that you may not have considered, like that unbillable man hour thing, looking for things on the overhead tab that might have been missed or look out of line, just to make sure that when you get on this page where it shows your man hour rate and your break even, that it's actually not just a figment of your imagination, it's actually correct.
Can you share maybe a best practice that you found on using this in the sales process? And what I mean by that is you showed calculating the numbers and sending off the proposal, but like, let's say you're at the site visit and now you got the information you need. Can you take it from there and walk us through a best practice of closing a sale with using this proposal?
Yeah. So my preferred method for doing that is, unless there's something about the job that I'm quoting that makes it impossible for this to be the case, I want to get that quote. I want to hit that send button right here before I leave the driveway. I want to do this on my phone, my tablet, or my laptop, and I want to hit that send button. And I want to say, hey, Mrs. Jones, I just sent you the quote. You know, I've been here for 20 minutes. I walked the job, and I created the estimate in less than a minute on my software. I sent it to you. Can you open it up? Let's look through it together. And I want to talk through it right there with them, looking over their shoulder, answering any questions they have, overcoming the objections they may have, and helping them arrive at a decision right then and there. And ideally be leading with a down payment check in my hand. Because you will win more jobs by getting that quote to the customer in real time than being the cheapest ever will.
Yeah, I can tell you one of the biggest pain points for our niche, excavation and septic, is the getting ghosted.
Yep.
Of, well, you know, I'm going to go back to my office or home office. I'm going to put together this quote. And then they'll let 2 days go by before they actually send the quote out.
Yep.
And then what they'll do is wait another 2 days to let the person digest the quote.
Yep.
Now 4 days have passed, and that person probably doesn't even remember your name. They might have gone with someone else by then.
That's right. So many synced up customers come to us afterwards and say, like, I won the job and I was already installing it by the time my competition got their quote back.
Oh,
You know, it happens.
and so you can't be timid.
No.
You have the ability to, with this tool, give them the proposal with the correct numbers right then and there.
Yep.
You can do that.
And here's the thing, like, if you're going to do this on pen and paper or spreadsheets, like, that is really difficult to do.
Yes.
So it's about the operational. This is another example of what I mean by operational efficiency. Where can I take a 10-minute process down to a 1-minute process? Where can I take a 3-hour process down to a 10-minute process? And for many contractors, creating that estimate is a huge low-hanging fruit opportunity.
Because not only did you create this accurate quote in 10 seconds, you got the contract out to be digitally signed and collect payment, again, within probably another 10 seconds, I'd say.
Yep, that's right.
And from there, they have it, and you can close the sale, but you can't be shy about it, you know, because if you're going over it with them, you have to be prepared to handle the objections that are going to come up, like, oh, this price looks a little high, or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then it just comes down to sales skills, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually another piece of advice that I have for contractors is, so much of the time it's like, build your budget, Get to the point where the math is the math and there's no fluff, there's no arguing with reality. It is what it is. Build your budget and then go off and develop your salesmanship abilities, because saying that my competition is cheaper is code for I don't have confidence to charge what I need to charge to be in business and stay profitable. It's code for I'm not a good salesperson, or it's code for I'm not good at proving my value.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that would take us off in a whole nother tangent. But this right here, this workshop, if you will, I mean, you did it. We got the accurate quote. You set the proposal out. Job sold.
Let me show you what it looks like to schedule the job and track the job. So I can schedule it, say, hey, client wants it done at the end of September. So I'll now go to my calendar, and bingo, at the top of the list on my calendar is this job. So this sidebar is my queue of jobs that are not yet scheduled, but they're sold. I can just drag and drop it to the schedule. I can assign it to somebody, and I can say there's 95 hours in the job, but we're going to do 3 people on the job site, average of 10 hours a day, so 30 man hours a day, and it calculates how long the job should take. I open my synced up app on my phone, and that job is on my schedule. I can see all the job details, information, how many hours are in it, what pictures are in it, what materials are in it, and I can clock in and out. So even though I'm on my
wow.
phone, like that's
maybe.
And now
can you show that again real quick?
Yeah.
I reclaimed host. Just hold that up to the screen so I can see that.
So right here is my phone. I'm holding up to the webcam. It's kind of blurry there.
It's clear now. I can see it perfect.
So that's my schedule. That's on my job. I just drag and drop that job to my schedule, and now it's on my phone. Or if I have a crew leader that's putting the jobs in, it's on their phone. I can then clock into the job and select who's with me on my crew, select what work area I'm working in, and I'm going to show you on my screen again here in a sec what it looks like when I'm done. But essentially, I'm going to go through and just work all day, clocked into that job, and clock out.
It's more than just here's a quote and a proposal. It is also scheduling work and organizing the workflow.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
So now I'm going to share my screen again and show you what that looks like in the UI. So when I go back to this job, here in the visits is that timesheet that I just clocked in on.
Yeah.
And I can see exactly what products I used that day, how many hours I was on site. I can see the notes from that the crew lead left for me. I can see the timesheets, when they clocked in, when they clocked out, where they were.
Can they send photos too?
Yes, they can send photos. Yeah, I can snap a photo in the app and upload it. So like progress photos, where I'm burying utilities, where I'm burying pipe, where I ran into something, all of that can be documented right in the app.
Wow.
And what's really powerful is when I get to the costing analysis, I can see exactly in real time how many hours I've consumed versus what's in the original estimate. And I can drop down, I can see it on a line item by line item basis as well. And so I can know exactly what part of the job took longer or not as long as I had estimated, which gives me the power. So if you remember that flywheel I was sharing earlier,
yeah,
this is what gives me the power to know, hey, third time in a row that I was over hours. Let me adjust how I bid these jobs so I don't repeat the same mistake again and again and again. And I can come up here and see the estimated versus actual costs on labor, materials, equipment. I can see estimated versus actual net profit, all in real time, in live real time.
I love how clean this is. Like, this is very easy to look at it. You don't look at it and feel intimidated. It's very simple.
Thanks.
Cool.
Down here is all the estimated versus actual materials. So I can see like, hey, I estimated 35 sticks of pipe, I've already used 2. And I can drop down and see exactly who entered in, when, what quantities, etc.
Love
So
it.
it's all about estimated versus actual, because on the budgeting screen, you can kind of do what you want. You put bad info in, you'll get bad info out, but the job costing doesn't lie. The job costing is the acid test. This tells me, am I actually making the money that I thought I would make when I bid the job?
For sure. Very cool. Well, on my end, I can't think of any other questions. This was extremely helpful, Weston.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I hope it is useful to somebody that's watching this, and it's I think probably the biggest thing is, as a contractor, because I worked in a business for 15 years. I know what it feels like to be on the other end of this conversation. As a contractor, I think we overestimate how difficult it is. Like, we see something like this and we're like, oh, but I don't use computers. I could never do this. I've been quoting off of my memory for the last 20 years. It really is not as hard as it might appear. Just a law of human nature is it's always easier to continue doing what you've always done, even if that way is broken. But most of our customers that come on board and say, hey, I want to start using Synced Up for my quotes, in 1 to 3 weeks, they're off and running.
Yeah. Well, I think I do have one other question. So, does it keep a history of other projects that you've bid?
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be very helpful, as well as months go by, years go by.
Yep.
You can kind of see a trend.
Yep. So I can see, like, I can filter. I'm on the estimates page, and I can filter to all the estimates that I've sent, but that were never approved. I can just go back through and follow up on every one of these.
Oh, nice.
Or I can see all the ones that I lost. There's all the ones that I lost, and click into them and revisit them. Or I can see all the ones that have been approved. They're all there. And inside of these projects, I can click into each one of them. Like, I can search for, let me show you another one right here. I can click into each one and be like, hey, that's a job that I'm bidding a job, and I did a similar job about 4 months ago. Let me go look at how long that one took, so I can make a more informed decision on how many hours I should put in this new one.
Yeah.
I can just go back to that job, click over the costing and analysis, and I can see exactly how I did on that job.
Very cool. Is there a way that you could filter, like, say at the end of the year, okay, I did this many retaining walls, I did this many septic installs, I did this many demolition jobs, or whatever the case may be? Can you break it out into jobs too, if you wanted to know?
So what we do show is, so I can come back here and say, hey, I did this many hardscape jobs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can filter by division, and it shows me all of the completed jobs numbers in aggregate. So the job costing, instead of being individual job by job by job, it's an aggregate, like an accumulative total. And I can come down here and see all of the jobs that I did that fit that filter that I set.
That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
Because then you know kind of what your top money makers are.
Yep.
And your core competencies.
Yep.
And you may find other projects that you've been doing that are just complete time sucks.
You may find out that it's totally not worth my time doing some certain line of service, because I'm just not set up right for it, and I just don't make any money at it.
Very nice.
And you can also filter by salesperson or crew foreman as well.
That might be helpful. Like, if you have a crew foreman and you notice that, all the jobs that he's managing or whatever are taking a lot longer, perhaps you could use that kind of information. Like, why is he so slow? Or why is this other one so fast? How come he's getting it done so quickly?
Yeah. And my favorite kind of line of thinking is, if it took you longer, like speaking to a crew leader, if it took you longer than anticipated, no stress. The only thing I want to know is, why do you think it took longer? I want to know, because if it's my end, the estimating and sales end, I don't want to make the same mistake again. I don't want to give you 80 hours when it really should be 120. You know, if it took you less hours than I had anticipated, awesome. Let's high five each other. Maybe I'll bonus you, you know, but tracking time is really key. Sometimes employees feel like, oh, they're tracking time so the boss can watch what I'm doing. No, it's not that at all. If we all want to make more money, right? Yes. Okay. Well, for us to make more money, the company needs to make the money to do it. So for the company to make more money, we have to know our numbers. For us to know our numbers, we have to know exactly how long and what resources every job takes, and that requires tracking. And the only price tag, so to speak, or the only punishment of going over the original estimate is, why do you think it was? Why do you think it did go over?
Yeah, I love it because all business has its peaks and valleys, its ups and downs. That's just part of the game. But when you're in those valleys, it gives you confidence the more facts that you have about your business.
That's right. That's
what pulls you out of that valley, is when you can look and have data to back up. All right, I'm not crazy, because I can see through months and years of this data that it's going to turn around. I can see the trend.
That's right. Probably the most critical the most critical thing that I have seen help contractors get over their fear of charging too much on an estimate is knowing what their break even is. Because, like, you know how it is. Like, you submit a quote for 17,500 for this job. The customer comes back and says, your competition gave me a quote for 10 grand. And you're like, what? How's that even possible? You know, so let's see what would happen if I would charge 10 grand. Let's plug it in. What happens? Wow, I would lose 20% in net profit. It's totally not worth it. I can't do it. It is what it is. Sorry. I can change the scope. I can change something about the job design, but I can't just knock it off the price. So the most powerful thing I've seen for a contractor that's fighting the head trash, so to speak, and what I need to charge to be profitable is knowing their break even and not submitting a quote for 20 grand and the customer says, can you do it for 15? And the contractor goes, oh man, I need the work. Yeah, sure. Because you just agreed to do the job for free. And if the sooner you can see exactly what it costs you to the penny to do the job, what your break even is, the faster you'll avoid that trap.
Yeah. And so once you get your numbers right, and I'm being conscious of time because I know we're already up on an hour. But when you know your numbers, for instance, with this, if you're still not making sales, it's the sales process at that point.
Yep.
You need to dive into that and take a hard look at that, because now you know your numbers, you know what you should be charging. So if you cannot sell jobs at that price and you're just hearing, well, my competition's undercutting me by 50% or whatever, you need to sell value. You need to work on the sales process.
That's right. My favorite.
Yeah.
I know we're out of time, but my favorite comeback to that is if my competition gave you a quote for 10 grand, why haven't you hired them yet? Why are you even talking to me?
That is a good comeback. I never thought of that. That's like the perfect rebuttal for that.
Like, there's a reason you haven't gone with them, right?
That's going on my Google Doc. I'm getting it in there. I love that. Okay, cool. All right. Well, Weston, how can people find you and reach you and learn more about Synced Up? By the way, is that the name of the app, Synced Up? Is that correct?
Yep, that's the name of the app. So it's behind me on my office neon sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's on my screen right now if you're watching the video stream. Synced Up is spelled SYNKEDUP. So if you just Google Synced Up, you'll find it. This is the website right here. You can go down the rabbit hole of all the different videos and features, and you can book a call right here. Just book a call right here, and we'll get on a call with you and just explore, you know, what your numbers look like, what your rates should be set at, and whether Synced Up is a good fit for you or not. But that, if you want to get down the, you know, talk to us and see what Synced Up may or may not be able to do for you, just come onto the website, book a call, and we'll take the conversation up with you. And I kind of like to say, I don't like the idea of calling it a sales call. To me, it's like a consultation. It's like, hey, we solve a problem, and either you have the problem or you don't. And the sooner we both figure out if you do or don't, the better off for both of us. We have no desire to waste anyone's time or sell something that you don't need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cool. Well, I will later on, for those watching this on YouTube and the other social networks, I'll make sure to put a link in the description so they can just click on it as well.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And Weston, thank you so much for your time and providing the value you did. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Scott. This is fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, my pleasure. Anytime. Take care. Bye for now.
Hey there, excavation pros. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and channel. Leave us your feedback and let us know how we did. And hey, if you're interested in taking your excavation or septic business to the next level online, make sure you visit excavationmarketingpros.com today and take advantage of our free resources and mastermind group for excavation and septic industry professionals.